The darkness of the metro tunnel felt safer than the open sky, pressed his back against the cold concrete wall and listened. Above them, somewhere in the ruins of Seoul, the alien patrol ships hummed their strange song. The sound made his teeth hurt. "How many did you count?" whispered beside him. Her medical bag hung heavy on her shoulder, nearly empty now. They had run out of proper bandages 3 days ago. "5 ships," answered quietly. "Same pattern as yesterday. They patrol every 6 hours." Shifted in the darkness, his military training still showing in how he moved. Even after losing his entire unit in the first week of the invasion, the young soldier stayed alert. "They think we're all dead or hiding like scared animals." "We are hiding," said softly. She clutched a small backpack containing the last seed samples from her research lab. Everything else had burned when the bomb the agricultural center. Looked at his small group. 4 people left from what had been a shelter of 30. The others were gone, taken by the aliens or killed in the bombing. For 6 months now, Earth had been under occupation. 6 months since the Empire arrived with their massive ships and their message of superiority. The invasion had been fast, too fast. The aliens came from 4 different worlds united under one empire. They had technology that made Earth's weapons look like children's toys. City after city fell within weeks. Governments collapsed. Military forces scattered. The news broadcasts before they went dark showed the same scene everywhere. Ships hovering over burning cities, their victory already certain. Remembered the broadcast that played on every screen, every radio, every device that still worked. The alien commander's voice, translated into every human language. "The human experiment is concluded. Your resistance has ended. Your world belongs to the Empire now." That was 3 months ago. Since then, the aliens had been busy. They set up occupation zones in every major city. They cataloged Earth's resources like humans were just another entry in their database. They treated people like insects, barely worth noticing. "We should keep moving," said he found clean water 2 stations down. They moved through the tunnel carefully. The metro system, built deep underground decades ago, had become a lifeline for the survivors. The scan from above, but they seemed to have trouble detecting humans through all the concrete and earth. Or maybe they just didn't care enough to look. As they walked, thought about what they had learned. Small pieces of information, gathered from watching the aliens, from studying their patrols, from the few brave souls who got close enough to observe. They were efficient, logical, powerful, but they were also careless. They had won so easily that they stopped paying attention. They reached the next station where waited with 2 others. The old maintenance worker had somehow kept parts of the metro system running using generators and luck. "Water's this way," said, leading them to a service tunnel. "But I found something else too, something strange." In a small chamber had set up equipment salvaged from the ruins above. Old computers, a radio, some monitoring devices. On one screen, he showed them footage captured from a hidden camera near an outpost. "Watch this," said. The footage showed alien soldiers moving around their base, but something was wrong with them. They moved slowly, almost carefully. One alien stumbled and had to steady itself against a wall. "They're struggling," said, leaning closer to the screen. "Look at how they move. It's like everything's too heavy for them." Because it is, realized. Earth's gravity, it's stronger than whatever world they come from. Pulled out a notebook where she had been recording observations. "And remember what happened to that alien we saw in the rain last week. Its skin turned gray and it seemed sick." "Heavy metals," added. "Earth has higher concentrations than they're used to. Our water, our soil, even our air has traces of minerals that might be toxic to them." They all looked at each other. It was a small thing, maybe meaningless, but it was something, information, knowledge, and knowledge was the only weapon they had left. "We need to share this," said. "Other survivors need to know." Nodded at his radio equipment. "I've been picking up signals. There are groups like ours all over the world, different languages but same situation. Everyone's hiding, surviving, watching. Over the next few days, they sent out their observations using the old radio network. The responses came slowly at first, then faster. Other groups had noticed things too. The aliens couldn't see well in Earth's darkness. They avoided deep water. Their ships struggled in Earth's atmosphere during storms. They communicated using predictable patterns. None of it was enough to fight back. Not yet, but it was hope, and hope was dangerous. One night, while Sat watched near the tunnel entrance, joined him. "Do you think we can win?" the young soldier asked. Was quiet for a long moment. Above them, the alien ships continued their patrol. The city lay in ruins. Most of humanity was either dead or scattered. The Empire had 1,000 worlds under their control. Earth was just the latest. "I think," said slowly, "they made a mistake." "What mistake?" "They think we're finished. They think because they destroyed our cities and scattered our armies, we're done. But they don't understand something important about humans." "What's that?" Looked at his young companion. "We've been fighting to survive since the beginning. Ice ages, plagues, disasters, extinctions. Earth tried to kill us 1,000 times and we're still here. These aliens, they've never had to fight for anything. They just take what they want from weaker species." He pointed up toward the ruined city. "They think this is the end. They forgot to ask themselves why humans seemed so easy to beat. It's because we were never the strongest species on our own planet. We learned to survive by being smart, by adapting, by never giving up." Smiled for the first time in weeks. "So we wait, we learn, we prepare." "Exactly," said. "They think they're fighting a defeated enemy. They don't realize they're fighting survivors. And survivors are the most dangerous thing in the universe." In the darkness of the tunnel, with the alien ships humming overhead, something began to grow among the scattered remnants of humanity. Not hope, exactly. Something harder, something sharper. The had won the invasion, but the war was just beginning, and they didn't even know it yet. Around the world, in tunnels and caves and hidden places, humans watched and learned and remembered. The aliens thought it was finished. They had no idea what was coming. 3 months had passed since groups started sharing information through the underground radio network. In that time, something unexpected had happened. The scattered survivors weren't just hiding anymore. They were organizing. In what remained of Singapore, Minu sat in front of 5 computer screens in a flooded basement. The former cyber warfare specialist had managed to tap into the alien communication network. It had taken him 2 months, but he finally understood their language protocols. "Got another one," he said to his partner who kept watch at the stairs. "Convoy route from the Shanghai occupation zone to Tokyo. They're moving refined metals." Marked it on their map. "That's the 3rd convoy this week on that route. They're predictable." "Because they think we're not a threat," Minu said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "They use the same encryption every time, same routes, same security procedures. It's like they're not even trying." He sent the convoy information to 3 different resistance cells, one in Korea, one in Japan, one in the Philippines. The responses came back quickly. They were ready. Halfway across the world, Sara crouched in the red dirt of the Australian outback. Her group had made camp in old mining tunnels, deep enough that the sensors couldn't find them. She had learned something important about the alien scanners. They were designed for open spaces and clear skies. Earth's varied terrain confused them. "The convoy will pass through the canyon in 2 hours, she told her team. "We hit them fast, take what we can carry, and disappear into the caves." A young woman named checked her weapon, a rifle modified with salvaged alien parts. "What if they have air support?" "They won't," Sora said confidently. "Minu's been tracking their patrol patterns. The nearest ships are 300 kilometers away, and there's a storm coming. They hate flying in our weather." It was true. They came from a world with stable, predictable climate. Earth's chaotic weather systems frightened them. Storms, lightning, rapid temperature changes, all of it made them cautious. In the Andes Mountains was teaching the same lessons to his group. The former Special Forces soldier had adapted military tactics for their new reality. The aliens are used to flat terrain, he explained to the 30 people gathered in the mountain cave. Their home world has no mountains, no forests, no complex geography. Here, we use everything Earth gives us. He pointed to the map spread on the rough stone table. They have an outpost in the valley, 50 soldiers, maybe more. They think the mountains protect them, but mountains protect us too. His second-in-command nodded. We've been mapping all the paths they don't know about. Old hiking trails, caves, passages our ancestors used for centuries. The aliens stick to the roads because that's all they understand. Exactly, said. We hit them from above, from below, from angles they don't expect. Then we fade back into the mountains like ghosts. While fighters prepared for direct action, scientists worked on different problems. In an underground laboratory hidden beneath a ruined university, stared at complex equations covering every surface. The former astrophysicist had access to salvaged alien technology and Earth's accumulated scientific knowledge. She was hunting for weaknesses in the faster-than-light drive system. It's beautiful, really, she said to her assistant. Their FTL system folds space using quantum calculations, but there's a vulnerable moment during the jump sequence, right when the calculations are running. Can we exploit that? Asked. Maybe, said, her eyes bright with dangerous ideas. If we can disrupt the calculation at the exact right moment, their drives would tear themselves apart. It was theoretical, untested, but it was a weapon, and weapons were what humanity needed. The first coordinated strike happened on a Tuesday morning. 12 occupation outposts across 3 continents were hit simultaneously. The attacks were quick, brutal, and perfectly timed. Sara's team ambushed the convoy in the Australian canyon. They took weapons, supplies, and 2 intact alien vehicles before vanishing into the caves. The air support arrived 20 minutes too late. Mountain fighters destroyed the valley outpost using tactics the aliens couldn't counter. They attacked uphill, downhill, and through passages the occupiers didn't know existed. When they tried to retreat, they found their vehicles trapped by rock slides carefully prepared weeks in advance. In Singapore, Minu disrupted the alien communication network just long enough for resistance fighters to raid 3 supply depots. By the time they restored their systems, the humans were gone. In Seoul's group, now grown to 50 people, collapsed a section of metro tunnel on top of an alien patrol. The soldiers inside called for help, but's team had jammed their signals. All across Earth the pattern repeated, small victories, tiny losses for the massive empire, but together they meant something. In the Occupation Command Center in what used to be London, the officer studied the reports with growing concern. 12 outposts attacked in one day, not destroyed. The humans didn't have the firepower for that, but damaged, disrupted, annoyed. Residual pockets of resistance, his second said dismissively. Primitives fighting because they don't know how to surrender. But wasn't so sure. The attacks were coordinated. That meant communication, organization, planning. These weren't random acts of desperate survivors. This was strategy. Increase patrols, he ordered. I want sensors monitoring underground areas more carefully. But the sensors still couldn't penetrate deep enough. The patrols still followed predictable patterns, and they still didn't take humans seriously. Back in her underground lab, received data from every attack. She studied how the aliens responded, how quickly their reinforcements arrived, what tactics they used. Each piece of information added to her growing understanding of their technology. They're rigid, she told her team. Everything by procedure, no improvisation. They do things the same way because it's always worked before. And we're the opposite, said. Exactly. We improvise, we adapt, we make things work with whatever we have. It's how we survived on Earth for millions of years. Mean you sent out a message through the network that night. It reached thousands of survivors in hundreds of hidden locations. They're noticing us now. Good. Let them notice. Let them know we're still here. In the Australian caves, Sara cleaned her weapons and planned the next raid. In the Andes, trained more fighters in mountain warfare. In Seoul, expanded his underground network, connecting more tunnels, finding more survivors, building something bigger. Medical stations were treating wounded resistance fighters now, not just sick civilians. Led combat teams instead of hiding in the dark. Botanical knowledge helped them find food and grow crops in hidden underground gardens. The survivors weren't just surviving anymore. They were becoming something else, something that didn't have a word for in their language. They were becoming an insurgency. The aliens still controlled the surface. They still had superior technology and overwhelming numbers. They still believed victory was certain. But in the darkness below, in the mountains and caves and ruins, humanity was learning, adapting, growing stronger. The thought they were dealing with scattered primitives. They thought the attacks were meaningless, small irritations from a defeated species. They had no idea that every attack taught humans something new. Every defeat showed them what worked and what didn't. Every day made them more dangerous. Somewhere in the occupied territories, a commander updated his report. Human resistance continues but remains insignificant. Situation under control. He was wrong. The situation had never been under control. They just didn't know it yet. 6 months into the occupation, everything changed. The change started in orbit when did something the thought was impossible. He stole one of their ships. Had been a military pilot before the invasion. After his base was destroyed, he joined a group of survivors near the old space center in Korea. They had been studying the alien vessels for months, watching how they docked, how they refueled, how the crews operated them. It's now or never, told his team as they approached the landed supply ship. The crew was inside a nearby building, following their rigid schedule for the shift change. Humans had learned that schedule by heart. 12 minutes, that's how long they had. And 5 others rushed aboard the ship. The controls were alien but not incomprehensible. Humans had been flying aircraft for over a century. The principles were the same, even if the technology was different. I can't read these symbols, said from the navigation station. You don't need to read them, replied, his hands moving over the controls. Watch what lights up when I press this. Remember the pattern. 6 minutes left. The engines hummed to life. Felt the ship respond to his commands. It was smoother than any Earth aircraft, more responsive. Beautiful technology, really. Too bad it was wasted on species that couldn't adapt. They're coming out, someone shouted. 2 minutes early, they had broken their pattern. Hold on, said, and pushed the throttle forward. The ship lurched upward. Alien soldiers fired at them, their weapons scoring black marks on the hull but not penetrating. Angled the ship sharply, using instincts from years of flight training, and shot toward the sky. We're flying an alien ship, laughed in disbelief. Not just flying, corrected, we're hunting. 3 hours later, a patrol ship exploded in orbit, the first of many. The news spread through the resistance network like fire. Humans could pilot alien ships. Humans could fight in space. The war had expanded beyond Earth's surface. In the underground command center that had been built beneath the ruins of Seoul, stood before a room of resistance leaders from around the world. The former teacher had become the voice that united them. We are not defeated, she said, her words carried through encrypted channels to thousands of hidden locations. We are not broken. For 6 months, we've been gathering strength. Now it's time to show them what that means. On her screen behind her, a map of Earth showed networks of survivors, not scattered refugees anymore, connected cells, organized groups, an army in hiding. They think they defeated us because they destroyed our cities, continued. But cities are just buildings. We are still here, we still fight, and we have learned from every battle. In the Australian caves, Sora watched the broadcast on a salvaged screen. Around her, fighters checked their weapons. They had raided 6 more convoys since the first coordinated strike. Each raid had been more successful than the last. The attacks continue tomorrow, said on the screen. But bigger, bolder. We hit 20 targets simultaneously, then 40, then 100. We show them that we're not random survivors. We're an army. Watching the same broadcast from his mountain base, nodded in approval. His fighters had grown from 30 to 300. People kept finding their way to the mountains, drawn by the resistance. Word spread in whispers and secret signals. There's still hope. There's still a fight. But the most important message came from what people were seeing. The supposedly superior species were struggling. Earth was hard for them. The gravity tired them. The weather scared them. The terrain confused them. And increasingly the humans hurt them. In her laboratory, made a breakthrough. She had finally cracked the mathematics of the FTL drive vulnerability. It works, she said, staring at her calculations. I can disrupt their jump sequence. Looked at the equations. Can we build it? With what we have. No, but we can improvise. We always improvise. Using salvaged parts and human ingenuity, they began building a prototype. It wouldn't be pretty. It wouldn't follow any engineering standard. But it might work, and that's all that mattered. The Resistance's next phase began with a captured alien outpost in Norway. His team took it in 40 minutes using tactics the still couldn't counter, attacking from underground, from the water, from angles the aliens never watched. They don't guard what they think can't be reached, reported to. They design their defenses like they're still on their flat home world. They don't understand how humans think. And humans thought differently. Humans thought about using rivers to approach underwater, using old sewer systems to pop up inside defended perimeters, using weather patterns to hide movement, using the terrain itself as a weapon. Every captured outpost gave them more technology to study, more weapons to use, more knowledge to share. Minu, still tapping into alien communications from his flooded basement in Singapore, noticed something alarming in the chatter. They're scared, he told his team. Listen to how they talk now. 3 months ago they called us defeated primitives. Now they call us persistent resistance. That's fear talking. Good, said, let them be scared. In the occupied zones, soldiers started seeing things that didn't make sense. Humans who should have been dead kept fighting. Humans with wounds that should have been fatal refused to stop. Humans in situations that should have killed them found ways to survive. A medical officer named explained it to a group of new resistance fighters. We evolved on the hardest planet these aliens have ever seen. We survived ice ages and plagues and predators bigger than us. Our bodies are built for endurance, for pushing through pain, for refusing to quit. She showed them scans from captured alien medical files. Look at their physiology. They're optimized for efficiency, not survival. A broken bone cripples them. Dehydration kills them in hours. They're soft because their worlds are soft. And we're hard, one fighter said. We're survivors, corrected. There's a difference. Hard things break, survivors adapt. That was the key word that kept appearing in human communications now. Adapt. Adapt to the occupation. Adapt captured technology. Adapt tactics. Adapt strategies. Do whatever it takes to survive and keep fighting. They couldn't adapt. They had never needed to. For thousands of years, their empire had expanded by crushing weaker species with overwhelming force. No one had ever fought back successfully. No one had ever made them change their approach. Until now. A captured officer, held in a resistance cell beneath Tokyo, watched human fighters prepare for a raid. They were planning to hit a supply depot with weapons held together by improvised repairs. Their armor was pieces of alien technology combined with Earth materials. Their tactics were a mix of old military doctrine and desperate innovation. "You cannot win," the alien officer said to his guard, a young man named. "Maybe not," replied, "but we're not trying to win, we're trying to survive, and survival is what we do best." The alien officer thought about that as the humans left for their raid. Hours later, they returned successful, laughing despite injuries, already planning the next attack. One fighter had a broken arm held together with salvaged alien medical foam. Another had burns from an energy weapon. None of them quit. The officer sent a message through the channel's menu had secretly left open, knowing it would reach command. "We did not defeat them. We angered them. There is a difference, and we did not understand it in time." In orbit, commanded 3 captured alien ships now. His fleet of stolen vessels was small, but it existed. And it was growing. Every success brought more volunteers who had flight experience or technical knowledge. "They built these ships to last forever," told his crew. "But they designed them for careful operators who follow the manual. We're going to push them past every limit." The reinforcements, responding to the growing resistance, arrived at Earth expecting to restore order. Instead, they found a planet that refused to be conquered, a species that should have broken but instead grew stronger, an enemy that learned from every defeat and adapted to every challenge. The war was no longer one-sided. The still had advantages, but humans had something the aliens didn't understand: the absolute refusal to accept defeat, not because humans were winning, but because surrender simply wasn't in their nature. They were Earth's children, forged by a planet that had tried to kill them 1,000 times, and they remembered every lesson that struggle had taught them. The aliens thought it was finished. They were wrong. 1 year after the invasion, humanity launched Operation Homecoming. It wasn't a single battle but a coordinated uprising across the entire planet. Every resistance cell, every hidden fighter, every survivor who could hold a weapon moved simultaneously. Stood in what had once been Seoul's metro system. Now it was a command center connecting to hundreds of kilometers of tunnels, caves, and underground facilities. The network had grown far beyond what they ever imagined. "All teams report ready," said, reading the messages flowing in. She was no longer just a medic. She coordinated the entire medical corps that kept fighters alive and fighting. "Phase 1 begins in 5 minutes, announced through the communication network. "Remember, we're not trying to win every battle. We're showing them they can never win the war." Around the world, resistance forces moved. In Sydney, Sora's team emerged from the underground like water flooding upward. 300 fighters who knew every tunnel, every sewer, every hidden path beneath the city. The occupation post never saw them coming until humans were already inside their perimeter. "They built walls and sensors facing outward," Sora explained to her fighters before the attack. "They forgot to protect against threats from below." The battle was short. The aliens fought back with superior weapons, but humans used terrain and numbers. For every fighter who fell, 2 more pressed forward. The soldiers, struggling in Earth's heavy gravity, couldn't maintain the pace. In the Andes Mountains, led a force of 800 down from the peaks. They had been training for this moment for months, learning to fight in Earth's harsh environments that the aliens found hostile. "They'll call for air support," told his second-in-command, as they moved through mountain passes. "Let them," replied, pointing at the storm clouds gathering above. "Minu hacked their weather satellites. They don't know about the lightning storm coming in 30 minutes." It was typical human warfare now, using Earth itself as a weapon. The aliens had better technology, but humans had home terrain advantage and the willingness to fight in conditions they avoided. When the alien air support arrived, they flew straight into a storm system that their sensors had failed to predict. Lightning struck 3 ships. The others retreated. Meanwhile, forces took the valley occupation zone and disappeared back into the mountains before reinforcements could arrive. Who had been a young soldier at the beginning, now commanded urban warfare units in Seoul. His specialty was turning the aliens' own fortifications into traps. They think walls protect them, he told his fighters, but walls also trap them. His teams moved through the ruined city like they were part of it. Every destroyed building was a position. Every piece of rubble was cover. They built their bases thinking like conquerors. Humans fought like survivors who knew every corner of their home. The pattern repeated across the globe. Lagos, Cairo, Ayers, Mumbai, Toronto. In every occupied city, resistance forces emerged from hiding, not to reconquer the cities but to prove they couldn't be eliminated. In space, commanded a fleet of 20 captured and retrofitted alien vessels. They weren't pretty. Human engineers had modified them with Earth technology, creating hybrid ships that would horrify any proper engineer. Their fleet is approaching, his sensor operator reported. 200 vessels. This is their full response force. Looked at his mismatched fleet. 20 ships against 200. The numbers were impossible, but numbers had always been impossible for humanity. Send the signal to Luna Station, ordered. Luna Station, the secret that humanity had been building on the moon for 8 months. While the focused on Earth, human engineers had been working in lunar caves, assembling weapons from captured technology and desperate innovation. The alien fleet arrived expecting an easy battle. Instead, they found themselves in a 3-way crossfire between Earth's defense satellites, its mobile fleet, and weapon platforms emerging from the moon. Now, shouted, and 20 ships attacked like wolves, targeting the alien fleet's communication vessels first. In her laboratory, activated her prototype FTL disruptor. It was ugly, built from scavenged parts and pure desperation. But when she aimed it at the alien fleet and fired, 3 ships trying to jump away exploded as their drives tore themselves apart. "It works," she whispered, then louder, "It works." The Battle of Luna Station lasted 8 hours. When it ended, humanity had lost 12 of their 20 ships, but they lost 80 vessels and retreated in confusion. Minyu, monitoring communications from his command center, intercepted the alien transmissions. "They're calling for total mobilization. The Empire is committing everything to Earth." "Good," said from the Central Command. "Let them come. Let them send everything they have." She opened a broadcast that went to every human, every fighter, every survivor on Earth and in space. "For 1 year they have occupied our world. For 1 year they have told themselves we are defeated. Today we show them the truth. We show them what humans truly are." The broadcast continued with a message for the Empire, transmitted on every frequency. "You wanted to see what humans are. We are survivors. We are adapters. We are the species that Earth couldn't kill even after trying for millions of years. We are relentless, and we remember every wrong done to us." Botanical research had produced results too. Working with SM's medical team, they had developed biological agents harmless to humans but devastating to physiology. It wasn't pleasant warfare, but neither was invasion. "They brought this war to us," said quietly, preparing the dispersal systems. "We're just using every weapon we have." The biological agents were deployed near major alien bases. Within hours, soldiers began falling ill. Their medical officers couldn't understand why. The agents used Earth-based compounds the aliens had never encountered, minerals and organic materials that humans lived with but alien biology couldn't process. The Empire's response was massive. They committed their entire fleet, determined to end the human problem permanently. 5,000 warships jumped into Earth's solar system. "They're really coming," said, watching the sensor readings. Of course they are, replied. They have to, because if one primitive species defeats them, their entire empire looks weak. He was right. They couldn't afford to lose to humans. It would undermine their authority over 1,000 conquered worlds. So they came with everything they had, planning to sterilize the problem. But they had spent a year underestimating humans, a year thinking the war was already won, a year not understanding who they were really fighting. The alien fleet arrived to find Earth's orbit filled with improvised weapons, mines built from salvaged parts, satellites repurposed as kinetic weapons, even old Earth spacecraft retrofitted with alien engines. None of this should work, an admiral said, watching the chaos unfold. But it does, his second officer replied, staring at the screens showing impossible things. Human ships held together with what looked like welds and hope, weapons that combined 3 different technologies, tactics that made no sense but somehow succeeded. On Earth's surface, every human who could fight was fighting, not because they thought they'd win every battle but because surrender wasn't an option. They had come to their world, had killed their people, had tried to break them. They chose the wrong species. In Chicago, fighters used the ruins to ambush alien patrols. In Moscow, resistance cells emerged from underground to strike supply lines. In Tokyo, his team captured an entire command post using tactics that would have been suicide for any other species, but were just another day for humans. How are they still fighting? An officer asked his superior as he watched injured humans continue attacking. That one has fatal wounds. He should be dead. Humans are not logical, the superior replied, fear entering his voice for the first time. They do not stop when they should stop. They do not die when they should die. They do not surrender when surrender is the only option. He pulled up data from 1,000 battles across Earth. The pattern was clear. Humans fighting with broken bones. Humans continuing missions despite injuries that would cripple any. Humans using their last breaths to take enemies with them. We made a terrible mistake, the officer said quietly. We thought we were conquering a weak species. We were actually angering the most dangerous survivors in the galaxy. The message went up through command, up through the fleet, up through the Empire. 3 days later, the Empire did something they had never done in 1,000 years of expansion. They sued for peace. Not because humans had destroyed their fleet, though the losses were heavy. Not because humans had superior technology, because they didn't. But because they finally understood what they were fighting, a species that would never stop, a species that grew more dangerous the harder you pushed them, a species that turned adversity into strength. Accept their surrender, ordered, but make them remember this day. Earth had survived. Against impossible odds, against superior technology, against an empire that ruled 1,000 worlds. Humanity had survived, and now the galaxy would learn what that meant. 18 months after the invasion began, the last occupation forces left Earth. Their departure was not triumphant. Ships limped away, carrying wounded soldiers and broken pride. The empire that had never lost a war had been fought to a standstill by what they called primitives. Stood in the ruins of Seoul, watching the alien ships disappear into the sky. Around him, the city was broken but not dead. Humans were already rebuilding, already moving forward. That's what survivors did. Is it really over? Asked beside him. She looked tired, worn down by months of tending to wounded fighters, but she was still standing. They all were. The occupation is over, said carefully. But the war, no, there will always be another war, that's what we learned. He was right to be cautious. In the underground command center was already preparing for the future. She had leaders from around the world on screens before her. We won because they underestimated us, she told them. But now the galaxy knows we exist. They know we fight. We need to be ready for what comes next. Sara, calling in from Australia, nodded. We're establishing permanent defensive positions. Everything we learned from fighting we're teaching to the next generation. In the Andes was doing exactly that. His mountain base had become a training facility. Young people from all over South America came to learn how to fight in difficult terrain, how to use Earth's environment as a weapon. The thought war was about technology and numbers, told a group of new recruits. They were wrong. War is about will, about the refusal to quit, about being willing to fight with whatever you have. He showed them recordings from the battles, not the victories, but the moments when humans kept fighting after any sane species would have surrendered. This is what makes us dangerous, he said. Not that we're strong, that we refuse to break. In space was building something new. Using captured alien technology and human engineering, he was creating Earth's first real defensive fleet. The ships were strange hybrids, combining the best of both worlds. The aliens followed rules explained to his engineers. Their ships are efficient, logical, perfect. Our ships are chaotic, improvised, barely functional, but they work because we make them work. He was designing vessels that could be repaired in the field, modified quickly, adapted to new situations. Because that's what humans did best, adapt. His research laboratory had moved from underground to a new facility being built in orbit. She was still studying alien technology, but now she was focused on surpassing it. They've been using the same FTL system for 1,000 years, she told her team. It's efficient, but it hasn't evolved. We're going to create something better. Her assistant looked at the designs. This would take them decades to develop. Because they don't know how to improvise, replied. We do. We've been doing it since we lived in caves. Around Earth, the rebuilding continued. It wasn't fast, it wasn't easy, but it was happening. Cities rose from ruins. Infrastructure was restored, and everywhere humans remembered what they had learned. Minu's communication network had become permanent. Every continent connected, every resistance cell now part of a global defense system. Information flowed freely, quickly, constantly. We were scattered before the invasion, Minu said. Divided by borders and languages and politics, they gave us a common enemy. They united us. It was true. For the first time in history, humanity truly acted as one species, not because they wanted to, but because survival demanded it. Medical research had advanced rapidly. Studying both human and alien physiology had taught her things Earth's scientists never knew. We're tougher than we realized, she explained to a medical conference. Our ability to survive injuries, to push through pain, to keep functioning in extreme conditions, these aren't bugs in our design. They're features. Earth made us this way. She showed comparative studies. Soldiers needed immediate medical care for injuries humans could fight through for hours. Alien physiology was optimized for comfortable worlds. Human bodies were built for hostile ones. This is why they lost, said. They forgot that evolution isn't about perfection, it's about survival, and we're the universe's greatest survivors. In Norway, where had captured one of the first outposts, a memorial was being built. Names of every human who died in the invasion were being carved into stone. Millions of names, a reminder of the cost. We can never forget this, said at the dedication ceremony. They came to our world, they killed our people, they thought we would break. We need to remember both our losses and our strength. Young, no longer so young after 18 months of war, was teaching urban warfare at the new military academy. His students hung on every word. The aliens had better weapons, better ships, better everything, he told them. But they didn't have better soldiers, because soldiers aren't about equipment. They're about heart, about refusing to quit even when logic says you should. Working with the captured alien equipment, had become an expert in alien technology, but he always reminded his team of something important. Their technology is impressive, he said, but it's brittle, perfect conditions only. Our technology is messy, chaotic, held together with determination, but it works in any conditions because we make it work. That was becoming humanity's philosophy. We make it work. Somehow, someway, we find a solution. The galaxy was watching. Other species who had been conquered by the sent quiet messages to Earth. Some offered trade. Some offered alliances. Some just wanted to know how humans had done the impossible. Met with the first ambassadors in the new diplomatic center. They came from worlds that had ruled for centuries. "How did you defeat them?" one ambassador asked. "They had superior numbers and technology." "We didn't defeat them," replied honestly. "We survived them. There's a difference. Defeating requires winning battles. Surviving requires refusing to lose the war." The ambassador looked confused. Continued. "The thought war was about battles. Win enough battles, win the war. But we learned a different kind of war from Earth. A war of endurance, of outlasting the enemy, of being too stubborn to quit." News of Earth's survival spread through the galaxy. Some species were inspired. Some were frightened. All of them realized that humans were something new, something different. In his rebuilt home in Seoul, sat with his old group. They had started as 4 people hiding in tunnels. Now they were part of something bigger. "Do you think they'll come back?" asked. She was growing new gardens across the city, bringing life back to the ruins. "Maybe," said, "maybe not, but we'll be ready either way." That was the new human motto, "We'll be ready." Looked at the sky where its defensive fleet patrolled. "We're not the same species we were before the invasion." "No," agreed. "We're not. We were divided, complacent. We thought we were safe. They taught us we're never safe. But they also taught us what we're capable of when we work together." Planted a seed in the fresh soil. A cherry blossom from her carefully preserved samples. It would grow in the spring, a symbol of life continuing despite everything. "They thought it was finished," said quietly. "They thought we'd just accept defeat and fade away. They forgot what humans truly are, finished. We're Earth's children, and Earth doesn't raise quitters." Around the world, that message was being repeated. In schools, where children learned about the invasion. In military academies, where soldiers trained. In laboratories, where scientists pushed boundaries. In the streets, where people rebuilt their lives. Humanity had been tested and hadn't broken. They had been pushed to the edge and hadn't fallen. They had been written off as defeated and refused to accept it. The invasion was over, but what it created would last forever. A united humanity, a species that knew its own strength, a people who would never again be easy targets. In orbit, commanded his fleet and looked down at Earth. The blue planet that had tried to kill humanity 1,000 times with ice ages and plagues and disasters. The harsh world that had forged them into survivors. "Thank you," he said quietly to the planet below, "for making us strong enough to survive this." Because that was the truth they had never understood. They thought Earth's harshness made humans weak, but it made them the opposite. Every challenge Earth threw at humanity, every extinction event, every climate shift, every disaster, had taught them to survive. They came from comfortable worlds. They evolved in safe environments. When they faced real adversity for the first time, they didn't know how to handle it. But humans, adversity was their natural state. Survival was what they did. Adaptation was their superpower. The cherry blossom planted would bloom in the spring. New buildings would rise. Technology would advance. Children would grow up hearing stories of the invasion, learning the lessons it taught. And if another threat came, another empire, another enemy, humanity would be ready. Because they remembered now, remembered what they were capable of, remembered that they were survivors first, last, and always. They had thought it was finished. They thought they had won. They were wrong. It was never finished. Humanity was never done. They were just beginning.